Ukraine's decision to blow up bridges across the country was a key to fending off Russia in the early part of this war. Now, 79 days into the invasion, the battle for Ukraine is still being fought along the river's edge. A few days ago, satellite images picked up what appeared to be temporary pontoon bridges built by Russian forces along a river in northeast Ukraine. The Russians were believed to be trying to cross that river in order to try and surround tens of thousands of Ukrainian forces. The arrow you see on the map is the approximate location of where they were trying to cross. Today, British intelligence was able to confirm these aerial photos, first released by the Ukrainian military, showing the remains of a decimated Russian battalion along what remains of those pontoon bridges. Ukraine claims that as many as 1,000 Russian troops were killed in that attack, and while we cannot confirm those numbers, the New York Times reports that Russian troops have been repeatedly thwarted trying to cross the Seversky Donets, leading to heavy losses and slowing their already plodding advance. The loss of this Russian battalion is just the latest in a long series of blunders by Russia since the start of this horrific war. Today, a former commander of pro-Russian separatist forces in eastern Ukraine accused the Russian defense minister of criminal negligence over Moscow's military blunders. This comes as Ukraine kicks off its first war crimes trial of a captured Russian soldier. The 21-year-old tank commander stands accused of shooting a 62-year-old civilian, a Ukrainian civilian, in the head through an open car window during the first week of the war. As Russia's war on the ground continues to plod along, Vladimir Putin's larger political ambitions for the war appear to have completely fallen apart. Putin's casus belli for this war, his justification for starting this nightmare in the first place, was at least partly about keeping NATO weapons off of Russia's border. But since the beginning of this war, NATO member countries have poured troops and weapons into the region to defend against potential Russian aggression. And now, as a direct result of Putin's invasion, Russia's border with NATO is poised to expand dramatically. Yesterday, the nation of Finland officially announced its plan to apply for NATO membership. And just today, Sweden's parliament released a report indicating it, too, may soon apply for NATO membership. Now, for context here, this is what the current NATO map looks like. In fact, you can't even see the top of it, where the top of Russia is, but Russia goes even to the top of that one. The NATO countries are the countries in bright green. You can see Finland and Sweden at the top of your map there are not in dark green. Now, Russia shares nearly 1,300 miles of border with NATO across Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. If Finland and Sweden were to join NATO, the Russia-NATO border would more than double. Now, the push to join NATO by those two countries is far from a done deal. Joining NATO is a complicated matter. And just today, the Turkish Prime Minister Erdogan signaled that he may oppose letting Finland and Sweden into the military alliance. But the fact remains that nearly 3 months into this war, Vladimir Putin's plans to overtake Ukraine have stalled. And his plans to halt NATO expansion have backfired. Joining us now is the former U.S. ambassador to Russia, Michael McFaul. Ambassador, good to see you. I think back, I guess it was 79, 80, 81 days ago at the beginning of the war when you and I were talking. And at the time, he doesn't talk about it as much anymore. At the time, Vladimir Putin had really planted a flag around this idea of the West, forced us into this by continuing to push toward us with NATO expansion. I want no more NATO on my borders. This was a big excuse for going into Ukraine. This feels like a bad trade-off for him.
I think it is a bad trade-off for him. In fact, I think he's lost the war in Ukraine already. He may win some battles. We don't know what's going to happen in Donbass. But if you go back to those original conversations we had, it feels like years ago, but I know it was just a few months ago. He's failed on all of his major military objectives. Remember, he was going to bring Ukraine in as part of Russia because they're not a separate people. That's failed. Denazification, that's failed. Demilitarization, that's failed. Taking the major cities, including Kiev, that's failed. And you're absolutely right. He said he was fighting NATO, and yet he has expanded NATO, and he has strengthened NATO as a result of this war in Ukraine. So on all of his major objectives that he himself defined, not me, he himself, you can read it in his speech, he has failed to achieve.